Cocoon Spawn Girls, Chapter 41. Aurelia, our end goal target, now kneeled before us, drowning in her own sorrow. How are we going to get her to tell us where Marzia was when she was like this? We were prepared for a fight, not whatever this was. What was her relationship to this spawn we slayed? What was it that caused her to now drop to the ground in grief over its wicked death? Aurelia was no longer with us in reality. In her mind, flooded with grief, she had no coping mechanism better than replaying all of her memories with him. Their life flashed before her eyes, and it was completely unseen by us. Aurelia, before the moon ever entered into her life, was someone else. Dean, sophomore in high school, member of the school's tennis team, a deeply closeted homosexual. There were girls who liked him, girls who showed up to all his games, girls who could have shared a good life with him. None of them were Michael. None of them compared. Taller than Dean, a pure white smile that melted your heart, the very picture-perfect image of a country club boy. He had such slender arms, but they carried enough strength to swing a racket. His hair was slightly overgrown. He was the type who always was saying he was forgetting to cut it, even though you know he liked it that way. Michael was the kind of guy any father felt comfortable trusting with their daughter. He was the type to always get them back before it was too late, and no one ever had complained about the time they spent together. Dean certainly never did. When Michael wasn't entertaining girls that came and went, he was spending his afternoons and evenings alongside his best friend Dean. Sure, sometimes he'd have to cancel plans due to some girl, but at the end of the day he always came back. So what did it matter? None of them ever understood him as well as Dean did. He felt it deep down, even if he didn't know it yet. One day, a day like any other day, Dean came to their regular spot for lunch outside on a balcony area outside the art room. He carried 2 bottles of Coke in his hands, one for him and one for Michael, just the caring sort of thing you do for your best friend. He turned the corner exiting onto the balcony to see Michael waiting for him, but he wasn't alone. A girl? His current fling, perhaps. I wish he wouldn't bring them around here, he thinks to himself. He takes his seat on the ground beside Michael. The girl sits on the other side of Michael. He shakes off this strange change to their routine. It's nothing. How'd the test go last period, eh, Mike? No worse than I usually do. Gotta slide by with a solid 70 and continue coasting for the rest of the year.
Come on, Mike. You can do better than that,
the girl teases. She puts her hand on his shoulder. Doesn't bother Dean in the slightest. He's got to take control of the conversation again.
So, who might this doll be?
Dean questioned. The sound of discomfort isn't hidden in his voice. Oh, she's... Michael began before the girl speaks over him.
Name's Frankie, and as of last period, me and Mikey are officially going steady.
Huh. Dating, huh? Dean croaked out. Congrats, then. Thanks, man. Michael lightly punched Dean's shoulder. You don't mind us spending some time together during lunch, right? More the merrier, right?
Of course, Michael. No problem here,
Dean smiled. And so this Frankie became a part of their regular lunch schedule. But not just that. She was also taking up Michael's time after school nearly every day that wasn't already taken up by tennis practice. At least Dean got to see Michael during practice. Got to enjoy hitting a ball back and forth together. He got to bask in the joy of seeing Michael dripping in sweat, raising his shirt up, exposing his tight stomach as he wiped sweat from his face. Dean never would complain about taking home used towels he shared with Michael to be washed, getting the privilege of taking in all of Michael's scent before each wash. When game days come, Dean wasn't the only one celebrating besides Michael anymore. Now Frankie seemed to always be the first one he looked for every victory. Never even glanced at his best friend who had always been beside him. Time went on and Frankie wasn't disappearing. Michael was only ever talking about her, about how she was oh so amazing. They seemed to actually be becoming more serious. How could this be happening? Frankie showed up to school one day with orange-dyed hair. Apparently Michael had mentioned he liked orange hair. It doesn't make sense. Why he'd never mentioned this to Dean? Dean knew everything there was to know about Michael. Frankie kept on doing these things, changing to trap Michael deeper in her grasp. He was too weak against her womanly charms, and he fell under her spell. Before Dean knew it, a year had passed and they were celebrating their 1-year anniversary. Dean wanted to vomit when he watched them make out so passionately. There, in their lunch spot, rolling around on the ground, completely uncaring about those watching them. Dean could do nothing as Michael slipped through his fingers little by little each and every day some more. He was losing him somehow. Michael was turning down more and more invitations to hang out as time passed. Dean was being left behind? Almost 2 years after Michael and Frankie started dating, right before their high school graduation, Dean was unexpectedly invited by Michael to come spend the night with him at his family's cabin outside town. When Dean showed up and Frankie wasn't there, it was like no time had passed. Michael was back. His Michael. It was like old times. The two of them enjoyed a day of fishing out at a lake, laughing and joking all around like always. Then, when the sun began to set, they handed up and cracked open some beers back at the cabin. Drinking, laughing, the mood was perfect. Michael never forgot Dean. He knew who his true best friend was. Times like this were still possible. Michael suddenly stepped away for a moment before returning with something in his hands. Dean's blood went cold as Michael began to show him a small box with a ring in it. He rambled on about how he had the proposal all planned out for after their graduation ceremony was over, but none of it made sense to Dean. He stopped being able to understand anything Michael was saying. He tried to tell Michael about how young they were. Wasn't it too soon to be doing stuff like this? But Michael insisted she was the love of his life. He went on and on about how he couldn't imagine a life without her, and how he didn't want to live without her. It was all too much for Dean. He felt like vomiting. Michael must have been able to see something was wrong. He came over to Dean's side to see if he was feeling all right. That's when Dean knocked him down to the ground, locking lips with him for one golden, blissful moment. Michael socked him right in the face in response. Dean rolled off of him as Michael began shouting something in confusion. Dean climbed to his knees, explaining to Michael how big of a mistake he was about to make. Frankie wasn't his soulmate. Dean told him all his feelings, told him how they were soulmates, and reminded him how great it was to be together. Wasn't today such a good day? Why would you ruin it by revealing you only brought him out there to ask him to help you with his proposal? Michael climbed to his feet. He looked down on Dean, and his face revealed a person he did not know. Michael turned into someone he did not know. It must have been the alcohol that made him say the things he said. So many hurtful, slur-filled words oozed from his mouth, and his tone raised, and his face turned more red. Dean was running through the woods towards town before he even realized what had happened. He eventually couldn't run any further, and he just collapsed into a ball, crying alone in the middle of the dark woods, lit only by moonlight. None of this made any sense. That's the night salvation descended upon Dean, through a little voice that whispered to him. It introduced itself as the voice of the very same moon that stood over the earth's sky each and every night. It said it had been watching him for quite some time. It had seen all of Dean's problems. It said it could offer him a solution if Dean was willing to accept the terms of its deal. The moon looked down on him with the warmth and love of a true friend. Dean didn't care what it was going to cost him. He would give the light if it meant he could enjoy the darkness with Michael by his side. And so, with the terms of their deal accepted without much discussion, Dean dropped to the ground and began to undergo a transformation. For the next few days, Dean lay there cocooned among the trees deep in the woods. Quite the surprise no one had seemed to be looking for him, wasn't it? Eventually Aurelia awoke into the world, crawling from her cocoon, naked and alone. The moon had gifted her the gift of womanhood. Now she was exactly what Michael wanted, what he had been attracted to. During her walk back into town, she stopped at a puddle to admire her new appearance. She scared herself at first, but the person looking back at her wasn't Frankie. It was her. She was exactly Michael's type now. Just like Frankie. She eventually made her way back into town, and after a detour to get some clothes from a particular girl's house, Aurelia arrived outside Michael's house. His room was on the second story, so she had to climb up the outside porch to get into his window. She wasn't worried about getting her nice dress dirty. After all, it was already a bit soaked in mysterious red liquid from when she picked it up. She arrived at the window. There he was, right there on the other side, getting dressed. Tonight wasn't just any night after all. All their classmates would be getting ready right now for the big prom. He looked so handsome in his little tuxedo. his wild hair now so well combed to look his best for his date. Aurelia tapped on the window, but he didn't seem to recognize someone was there. She knew Michael well enough to know he didn't always lock his windows, so it seemed like a good idea to make a big entrance. With her shoes, she opened the window, entering into his room legs first, her face hidden behind all the dress's poofiness. Michael was laughing when he spotted her coming in. He didn't even seem surprised to see her here. Maybe it was due to the dress she was wearing, but he seemed to recognize her. His laughter stopped when she sat up on his bed, now fully inside his room. Her hair, her face, they were all so alike his person, but those eyes betrayed her with their desperation. He began to back away in fear. It didn't make any sense. Aurelia began to explain how happy she was to see him, how excited she was for tonight.
Aren't you excited to take me to the prom, Mikey?
She asked with another woman's face. He screamed for her to get out, to get away from him. Aurelia couldn't believe it. She began to tearfully apologize for scaring him by coming in through the window. She just wanted to surprise him. And the dress being dirty, she didn't realize he'd be so upset by it. She'd change right away if he had another dress. Did he want her out of her clothes already? She wanted that too, of course. But wasn't it too soon? First, they need to dance the night away at prom, in front of everyone, showing them all what a good couple they are. Afterwards, if they ended up back in his bedroom, Aurelia blushingly was ready for whatever happened next. Michael just wouldn't stop screaming and making a big fuss over nothing. Why was he trying to ruin their special night, their first of many nights to come together as a couple? She grabbed onto him. He pushed her back with his overpoweringly manly strength. She wrapped herself around his waist as she continued to declare just how much she loved him, how she was ready to be the perfect bride for him, how she'd do anything he asked of her. All he had to do was name it. He kneed her in the chest, knocking the wind out of her, causing her to tumble backwards against the bed. He grabbed onto his desk chair and raised it above his head, shouting something about his so-called girlfriend and other accusations about her dress. Aurelia knew he'd never actually want to hurt her. He was just confused. Still, when he began to swing downward towards her, she couldn't stop herself from shouting,
"The moon is looking right at you."
Michael dropped the chair as he began to feel the effects of the moon's gaze, backing away from Aurelia and the window as he huddled in the corner in fear. Then the bedroom door burst open as his father came in, responding to the screams, carrying in his arms a 22-gauge shotgun. Aurelia didn't have any time to react before she was already killing the man threatening her and her boyfriend. More stains on her pretty prom dress, as if this night couldn't get off to a worse start. Michael was screaming bloody murder as he looked at his dead father. It seemed to really affect him. So of course, as his lover, she came straight to him to hug him and tell him everything was going to be okay. Her blood-covered hands touching his face seemed to place him in some sort of state of shock. Nothing was going right at all. This isn't at all what Aurelia had wanted to happen. She was starting to think she might have made a mistake somewhere along the lines and been unhelpful. Right, whatever the case, she wanted Michael far away from the crime scene. She grabbed onto Michael and dragged him down the stairs to his house, dragging him right past his deceased father. She took him all the way to the car in the driveway, going back in and returning with Michael's father's keys. He wasn't going to mind them borrowing his car anytime soon. They drove all the way out to the family cabin outside of town. Who needs a high school prom? That's what he was going to do with his old girlfriend. But now, they can have a private prom just for the two of them. Michael was waking up right as Aurelia finished setting up their prom. He immediately remembered what had happened before passing out from shock and returned to calling Aurelia all sorts of mean names. Why was he doing this to her? After all her hard work for the relationship, he was still going to go on and play cold? Aurelia pleaded with him. "Don't you love me?" And he so coldly destroyed her entire world by cruelly saying, "No, I will not love a disgusting murderer like you. There is nothing I like about you. I don't even know who you are, you sick f-" Aurelia in that moment felt her chest grow tight, felt her blood go cold, felt true and utter despair. She couldn't bear to look at him right now. She ran off once again into the woods to curl up and cry, just lying there among the fallen leaves in her pretty prom dress. Aurelia became so tired. He refused to love her when she was a man, outright rejected all the feelings they both surely held. So of course, once Aurelia became a girl, she'd get into her dumb head that everything would work out now. She held out hope for him. made herself into the exact type of woman he liked just for him. She did it all in the name of their love. And what was he doing? He was out there loving another woman. Some other woman was the one getting to touch those lips which she used to stare at for hours. So what was the point in any of this? What was the point in being this woman if it's not his ideal? She became everything he wanted and still he rejects her? She couldn't be his woman. She couldn't get to stay by his side even if it meant staying quiet all their lives about her feelings. But all this time, someone else had been watching her. The moon saw her for who she truly was deep down. It saw all her potential. It never stopped watching her. Its eyes never truly leaving her for an instant to cheat. It gave her exactly what she deserved, which Michael refused to ever show her. That's right. The moon won't ever betray her. She listens to its whispers, and it tells her there's still a way to keep Michael all for herself, even if he doesn't yet love her. She returned to the cabin to enact the instructions the moon had given her. She dragged him outside by his collar. He kicked and screamed until she reminded him who was watching. The moon told her to bring him to an open clearing. Then once there, open his mouth and lean his head back. Michael was so lucky. He was about to become the first of many to come that would undergo a special transformation. The moon had told her a disease was about to sweep the entire planet, and the very first infection spores would begin to snow down on a breeze on this very night. So Aurelia stood there all night keeping Michael in place, making sure he was going to catch this wonderful new sickness. By the next afternoon, Michael was already showing signs of a fever. It was a complete success. 2 days later, he was fully entrapped inside his pretty cocoon. Just like Aurelia, he was going to undergo a wonderful change, which would help him to understand her better. When the day came that he emerged from his cocoon, he was different. Not exactly how Aurelia had pictured him. She thought he'd come out just like her. Instead, he'd become a horse-like turtle thing. It was unexpected. Still, the moon's voice in her ear promised her that this is what it was expecting, that this was good. He wasn't able to speak. Like a wild animal, he seemed to just try to attack anything that moved. As the world learned of this new pandemic, Aurelia had to move her boyfriend somewhere better to hide him. The moon guided her to a cave where she could properly hide him, in a place the moon assured her would soon be overrun with his kind. Months turned into a year of coming by every day to see her growing boyfriend. He was getting larger, growing into his true form. Every day for the first year, she imparted with the moon's blessing onto him, forcing his animal-like mind to bear the weight of such higher intelligence. It was starting to pay off too. He was slowly beginning to remember who he was, and how to express himself. The moon said she couldn't keep using its powers to nurse Michael back to his old self, that it had been very generous with her, but now it needed her to start paying back her tab. She was its avatar after all. It was about time to leave Michael on his own and start accomplishing jobs the moon requested. Aurelia understood. She knew the moon would always guide her to the right way. It would never lead her astray. So she did as it asked. She left her cave and began acting as a fallen magical girl. 2 years later, she was out on a mission, when suddenly the moon informed her trouble was brewing at Michael's cave. She had been there only a day prior, so how could something be happening so soon after? The moon told her it was 2 magical girls. They were killing him. Aurelia lost it. She was far from the cave. She needed another day to make it back on foot. She contacted her acquaintance, Dr. Agiel. His partner, Mare, was capable of getting her there instantly. He seemed to almost be expecting her call. He wasted no time telling her what he wanted in exchange for the rush portal job. Aurelia didn't care. She would have agreed to anything. Now, here she was. Michael was here too. He was lying in 2 pieces before her eyes. His head had somehow disconnected from its body. Since when could he do that? Silly Michael, always playing these tricks on her, saying things he didn't really mean, pretending not to love her. He was always so funny. Yet he wasn't breathing. This wasn't funny anymore. Get up, Michael. Get up, please. This doesn't make any sense. Michael has never left his forest surroundings, his cave. He's had to be force-fed flesh every quarter or so because he doesn't eat anything on his own. So what could have attracted magical girls to his location? Why? He can't be dead, can he? The moon whispers to her, trying to snap her out of her memories. "You have to avenge him. His killers are right there. Let them know I witnessed it all." Aurelia tried to say it. She really did. But so much snot and mucus filled her that no words came out. Her heart wasn't in it. Grief was still all she could feel. The reality of it all wasn't sinking in. A choking sounding laughter was all that she could muster. This all made no sense at all to her. When does anything ever make sense, though? People say things and mean another. They say they don't love you or want to see you, and all that while they really are your soulmate. Michael isn't dead. He can't ever die, because Aurelia still feels him deep inside her heart. His warmth, his love, it burns brightly inside her. She climbed to her feet, a smile spreading across her face. She looked over towards the magical girls. "It's a lovely night to be the center of attention for the moon. It can't take its eyes off of you." The fight begins. End of chapter 41.